All right, I got to start all over. If you can hear me now, please hit me up in chat. I know there's one person in here. I apologize for that. I didn't realize I was muted. I have to turn off the sound on my computer so it doesn't turn into an infinite feedback loop. Let me see if I could kind of rig that some to make it better. Hello, test, test, test. Yeah? Okay. So now we're unmuted. So let me just start over. Whoever that is watching, I really appreciate it. So I was talking about the bans, what happened with Trump today. Basically, you've got a situation whereby the President of the United States has been banned from every platform. Now, well, one, let me start with, it doesn't matter that it's the President of the United States. It doesn't matter at all. Okay? What matters is that they were given special protection under Section 230, right? Those rules that President Trump wanted ended as part of the National Defense Authorization Act. They were given special protection from lawsuit. You cannot sue Facebook, Twitter, Google, any of them, any website basically, for what other people post on their page. They are not responsible for what you say. They cannot be held legally responsible in a court or in civil court at all. They can't be. So when they have a terms of service and they say so-and-so violated my term of service, like, what they're really saying is we want to control what you can say. Now, I would say decorum, morals, that would dictate, what you would allow. The problem is we live in the most politically charged environment in the history of our country, probably, where we can't even agree on what a boy and a girl are. Right? We can't agree on that. We can't agree on when a life is a life. We can't agree on whether or not a nation should have secure borders. We can't agree on whether or not the Second Amendment really means Congress shall make no law. Like, we disagree about things that it's physically impossible to disagree upon. And they have guided their terms of service to make it so it looks equal when you read it, and then they can apply it differently, right? That's the danger of law, right? And months ago I did a YouTube video about how unequal application of the law creates, it doesn't matter if it creates unfairness, it creates the appearance of unfairness, right? So in the military, if a supervisor has what appears to be a special relationship with a member, right, like one of their troops or whatever, and the other troops say, I think so-and-so is hanging out with such and such, and that's why he gets promoted. I think they're drinking buddies, and that's why they're taking care of each other. Or, I think they're fucking, man. I think they're getting down. I think Airman so-and-so is having sex with Sergeant such and such, and that's not fair because she gets special treatment at work because of it. What that ends up meaning for everybody is that, well, in the military, what it means is if that airman says that, then that's enough. The appearance of impropriety is enough for the commander to engage and say, hey, stop it. I don't care what your relationship was with that person. It's over now. It's done. Because the appearance of impropriety is enough to make it feel like a hostile environment for other employees. Similarly, it can also make it feel like unfair. It can make it feel downright dirty. And it's not good for the health and well-being of everybody, right? Similarly, the election definitely had the appearance of impropriety. Whether or not you agree with the theories about election fraud or voter fraud, I'd rather not get into. But it had the appearance of impropriety, which is enough for where somebody should have stepped in and said, whoa, right? Let's audit these voter rolls. Let's look through the books. Let's do it all, step by step, right? What are the concerns? We need to address every bit of it, right? Google's response to that and Facebook's response to that is, if you talk about that, we're going to ban you. Well, you've been protected. Nothing I say can harm you at all. Nobody else in the world has that protection. You remember, they were allowed to bring a lawsuit against the Christian baker, right? That's the big meme I saw today is, well, just think about the Christian bakers, and they They got sued and you guys didn't like that. No, we didn't mind that they got sued. We would have minded if they lost, because they shouldn't lose their religious rights and their right to control what their organization does, the content of their product. Is protected constitutionally. Section 230 protects Google. You're protected already. You shouldn't be controlling what comes out of my mouth to protect yourself. And so what you're saying is, like, you're not protecting yourself. What you're doing is making sure I can't be heard by anybody else, because you think everybody is stupid and that they'll hear me and not be able to decide for themselves whether or not the product I'm putting out is quality enough. Whether it's truthful, factual, or if it's just entertainment or whatever, you have decided for the world whether or not I can talk. We provided you those protections so that you couldn't do that. So you shouldn't do that. So that we would have an open forum on the internet. Amazingly, somehow Congress saw the writing on the wall is that if every website could get sued, nobody would use the internet. Nobody would open up a, imagine Amazon could get sued for their marketplace people, the people that sell through Amazon, for the products that they provide. That would be absurd, right? Well, Section 230 kind of provides a protection for that too. Now, you've got these companies, and they've come in and they banned Trump, but while they were doing that, they knew that would be the big news story of the day, that everybody would be talking about that. So while they were doing that, they were banning everything else under the sun. YouTubers, streamers, websites. They kicked Parler off of its web server and both app stores. If you want to talk about what a monopoly is when two corporations that are main competitors for each other make the same decision on the same day. That's, in any other frame of reference, we would call that price fixing, right? But they both decided the same moment that we're not going to allow Parler on our app store. And then Amazon chimes in and goes, and we're not going to host your servers anymore. These are the three biggest players in our country, and they've said nobody's allowed to compete. Not only that, not only do we not like what you were saying on our platforms, you're not allowed to go to other platforms. We won't let you get to them. Now, here's a hint, right? Until, I guess, Parler's going down pretty much midnight tonight. Until they get new servers. But when they get new servers, if you don't have the app on your phone and you want to log into it, you just have to go through the website. Is it annoying and a little less functional? Yeah, but if you want to support free speech, that's what you have to do. The alternative to Facebook is an app called MeWe. It's been very difficult because people are hesitant to move over to it. What their platform is, it's completely free, but they have add-ons that you can buy into. I read an article once that said if you wanted to fund Facebook without having them sell your data or collect your data, it would cost about 99 cents a person a month. Like, they could turn a profit just by asking us to pay 99 cents a month and not stealing our information. But I feel like they know that would give them way too much control. You would never have to deal with ads again. So that's kind of where we're at, all right, is you got to find other avenues. I'm currently looking for new phones, right? I don't want to deal with Android. I don't want to pay them. Android's open source, so it's not so bad. You can just get a different company's phone. Apple, not so much. I'm also looking at just different operating systems as well. But the problem is if the stuff's not in the App Store, it's not about guys like me who know about computers. It's about, somebody who doesn't. Somebody who's like, I only know how to download apps. If it doesn't have an app, I'm not going to use it, right? This is how Google kept Windows out for a long time as well. They didn't make apps for Windows 10, Windows 7. They just didn't for a long time. A lot of companies would not make an app for Windows 7 because if you didn't have an app and people were used to apps, that stopped Windows from having a viable Windows Phone. They had the Windows Phone, but there was no apps for it, right? And you couldn't make a YouTube app because YouTube would fucking block it, right? Block its access from their servers. So they wouldn't make an app for the Windows Phone. and then they wouldn't let you use a different app that was made by somebody else for free, you're shushing the competition, right? Like, I understand a little bit of competition is good, but there's none left. So now they've banned the president and a bunch of other conservative thinkers, right? And let's be honest, not all the conservative people out there are thinkers. A lot of them are just saying shit. Some of them are literally just like, I'm going to be a super conservative person because I'm going to get a lot of likes and views, and I'll just say funny shit, and I'll just agree with whatever the sentiment of the day is. And that's cool, man. You know, however you can make a buck. I'm not a super funny guy. I do have some beer here I'll be drinking with you tonight because I plan on going for quite a while. Just because I'm a bullshitter. I like bullshitting with you guys. I see that one person is in chat, maybe. Go ahead, send me a message if you want to, if there's something you want me to talk about. I'd love to have a conversation with anybody. Let's see. So now you got not just Trump's, but the President of the United States' official Twitter. So the POTUS Twitter has been having posts deleted from it. Then you got all these conservatives being blocked. And what concerns me is that, like, people are getting protective. They're getting protective of themselves, right? So the second the Capitol gets quote-unquote stormed, we'll talk about that in a minute, but the second it gets stormed, suddenly all these senators that were going to object just don't have any more objections. Let's have a conversation about logical fallacies really quick, right? Because the Capitol got stormed, all of these objections are no longer valid. About a completely different set of circumstances, about a completely different thing. The Capitol gets stormed, and that's one illegal act. And over here we have the election, and we have dozens and dozens and dozens of illegal acts over here, or at least objectionable acts. And because the Capitol gets stormed, all of them were let off the hook of supporting the president. Even the ones that said they would. And they threatened anybody that didn't play nice. They're going to charge them with treason and impeach them. Anything from that all the way down to, what's it called, where they censure them. This is beyond ridiculous, right? So let's compare. A few years ago, the and I can't remember exactly when this was. The two school teachers went into the Wisconsin State Capitol building. They stormed it. They went in yelling, screaming. Business couldn't be conducted. It was crazy. And they took it over, basically held a sit-in, right? And our media was like, that was a peaceful protest. Look, they're defending their rights to public, what do they call it? Bargaining, collective bargaining. You know, this is unfair what the governor's doing, blah, blah, blah. Nobody got mad at those people. Nobody got mad at them for storming the Capitol building in Wisconsin and sharing their voices, right? Earlier this year, you've seen the videos, Portland, Seattle, Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., Baltimore, Kenosha, Chicago, Atlanta. Like, a lot of the most major cities in our country got burned down this year. And it was all peaceful protests. You could literally watch them throw a firebomb, and they were saying, this is a peaceful protest. Which we get, right? Like, that was the game they were playing. But to flip that script 180 degrees on its head over the Capitol building, where they stayed inside the velvet ropes, is beyond absurd. So, they stormed the Capitol building. All of these senators and congresspeople were let off the hook by a couple of bad actors. And when I say a couple, I mean a couple. Like, they probably had over 1 million people there in D.C. And then you have, what, less than 1,000, less than 500 people went into the Capitol building? Not even. And so few of them did anything that was actually objectionable, right, to use a funny word, that they didn't arrest most of them. They didn't even set charges against them. They just walked inside, a lot of them, and then were like, oh, this is interesting. I get to go through the Capitol without having to be on an official tour. Like, was it right? No. Did it help the Trump case? No. Did it change the Trump case? That's what we should all be asking. Did it change what happened during Election Day? Absolutely not. Did it change what happened in the days following Election Day? Absolutely not. So why did the objections disappear? Political expediency. It was politically expedient for these jerk-offs to walk away from their responsibility to uphold the Constitution. Every single person currently sitting in Congress should be kicked out in 2018. Every single one. The next time they come up, they should be primaried. Just because, right? I've thought for years we should just have a the other guy party. We will call it term limits by voting, right? Whoever the incumbent is, vote for the opposite person. I don't want anybody there long enough to figure out how to do things, how to rip us off, right? Example. Back in March, Pelosi takes off on recess, March, April, somewhere around there, takes off on a recess, and comes back after 2 weeks with 2,000 pages called the HEROES Act. I forget how many pages it was exactly. Nancy Pelosi can barely stream a sentence together. One. She barely streamed one sentence together in a press conference. And you're telling me she wrote thousands of pages of law that happened to serve no Americans? You know the absurdity? At the same time, she was pushing the CARES Act and pushing for more shit to be in it. Go and read the CARES Act. They were also out in the streets arguing George Floyd and defund the police. The same time they were defunding the police, they wanted to add $500 million through congressional funds, through the CARES Act, through the HEROES Act, to fund more police. $500 million to hire police as part of the fucking HEROES Act. And then she's on TV telling you she wants to defund the police. Talk about knowing the game too well, right? They name it the HEROES Act. Gives you an idea that it's for somebody who's a hero. It wasn't. Anyway, so now that we kind of covered that, I thought let's just talk. Well, before I move on, let's talk about what it really means to ban the president and all these other people, and you're not allowed to talk. You also have this problem where if people can't go to the court and they can't go to the police, they won't be heard. Their protests go unactioned upon, right? They protested in every state of the union, the election results. There was rallies everywhere for months in advance of the election and months after, supporting Trump, saying we didn't want this election stolen, saying we didn't want mail-in voting, that we didn't think it was right. And nobody heard people. Nobody heard anybody. They ignored them wholesale. And actually, research confirms that, like, the more public support there is for something, the less likely it is to get passed through Congress. It's like 96% or something like that chance. Like, it's not going to get through. So, these people have felt unlistened to. And then, after the election, they file affidavits. They do personal research. They go and testify before their state legislatures. They do everything they're supposed to do legally. And none of the state legislatures do anything. The governors don't do the right thing. Nobody does anything. People keep telling me, by the way, A.G. Barr even said there was no election fraud. That's not what he said. Let me look up the exact quote for you real quick. Let's do this. Go over here. All right. So, what did A.G. Barr say? No, that's not it. So here's this article from the AP. Disputing Trump, Barr says no widespread election fraud. Let's find the quote. To date, we have not seen fraud on a scale that could have affected a different outcome in the election. So let's talk about that. Up here, they say no widespread election fraud. There's a difference between election fraud and voter fraud. Voter fraud is like an individual going out, pretending to be another individual, or voting twice, or registering illegally, etc., right? There will never be enough voter fraud to steal an election because it's usually in individual circumstances. At most, somebody's going to steal like 1,000. One person might steal 1,000 or something like that. A voter has to be defrauded. Somebody has to have their vote stolen from them. So if you use like a dead person, that's not voter fraud, right? That's election fraud, right? So also election fraud would be the poll workers, the election manager, the county clerk, whoever's in charge of elections locally, telling people to do illegal shit. That would be election fraud. Getting evidence of that is extremely difficult. Because you're not allowed to have cameras inside of polling places. You're not allowed to video. They should video. Everybody in the place should have a GoPro on them. Every single person should be required to have a body cam. We do it to our police. They should have it too, the entire time they're there. You want to make sure the election's sweet? Do that. But he said, today we have not seen fraud on a scale that could have affected a different outcome. So, he gets all these complaints in. He is the DOJ. He is not allowed to investigate state law. He can only investigate federal law. So federal election law would be his baby, right? Now they can help the state if the state asks for help, but no states asked for help. And so that was what we got. Did he see enough? Who knows? But they took that and they ran really, really far with it. Now, why do I bring this up? Well, you got this situation whereby AG Barr said, hey, there's no widespread fraud that could have overturned the election. I don't care, right? Any amount of fraud, those people should be under arrest right now. Every single one of them. Somebody voted twice. I want to know who voted twice. I want their names and I want them under arrest. I want everybody to know. I don't care if you're somebody's grandma, you're going to jail. I don't care. Sorry, the light from this new camera is like right in my eyes. It's rough. I want to know who voted for dead people. Was it enough? I don't care. Because if you're willing to vote for a dead person, you're willing to do other stuff too. Right? But they should be threatened with prosecution and then questioned. All of these people, those ladies who got caught counting the same stack of ballots 3 times, I want them in fucking Guantanamo or similar circumstances being interrogated. Give up your person or you're going to jail. Or at least explain what you did. Who told you to do this? Who told you that was okay? Okay, let's get that guy in the hot seat. Who paid you? Right? So, you kind of have that. That's a problem, right? But you guys need to remember. Let me try to find this real quick. Got a 2020 review here folder, which could be helpful. So, election, maybe? No. Censorship would be a good one. So, you'll see this photo. The U.S. has laws, procedures, established institutions to ensure integrity of our elections. The Bipartisan Policy Center. So, we have a Federal Election Commission. We have a lot of different organizations, but guess who's in all of them? The companies that run this voting software, that sell it to America, right? So, procedures, established institutions that are rife with lobbyists. Laws. Well, laws are great. I can make a law saying, we could pass a law tomorrow saying it's illegal to, I don't know, throw away a USB stick, right? The question is enforcement. It doesn't matter if you have a law. And then, if you you arrest that person, you take them to court, and they say, yes, this person's guilty. And then they go, okay, what do we sentence them with? Well, there's no parameters in the law to sentence them with anything because we didn't really see anybody doing it. It's kind of like, I describe it as having a vault, right? You go into your local bank, you want to get a bank account. You want to put your money into savings there, right? And if you walked in and you said, hey, man, like, why is the vault door open? They'd be like, oh, yeah, we leave it open all the time. It's no problem. Because it's completely illegal for anybody to go in there and take anything. So don't worry about it. We just don't close it because why bother? It's illegal. Right? That's similar to our election law in America. It's illegal to do the thing, so the assumption is that nobody would do it, but there's no punishment attached to it. Obviously, nobody gets arrested, right? They have evidence. They have people with matching obituaries. 10,315 in Georgia, 17,000 people in Nevada with names that have an obituary attached to it with the same name and birthday. Now, let's see, not this one. Sorry, I'm looking for a specific photo. Why is this in the censorship folder? I was trying to organize it to be easier for you guys. No. Anyway, you got this scenario whereby everybody's saying that it's illegal to do these things, so nobody would do it, which is kind of fucking stupid because it's illegal to smoke weed, but people do it, right? It's illegal to rape people. That happens way too much. It's legal to do a lot of things, right? And we punish those things and people still do them, but we don't punish election law in America. So now you got the DOJ's out of the game. But in one of the reason why I pulled up the Facebook thing is that you have this situation where they say, oh, we have strict laws, guidance, and procedures, blah, blah, blah. And elections officials have guaranteed that have investigated. Election officials are the people who perpetrated. You can't be the person who is being accused of the crime and also be the investigator of that crime. Right? That's what we call a conflict of interest. Right? And that's what we have. Right? Similarly, you're accusing the governor of being bought and paid for. And he's in charge of the law enforcement apparatus of his state. So who's going to arrest him? Same thing with a mayor, local county clerk, right? That's all executive branch stuff. And who's going to investigate them? Well, they're the investigative body. It's absurd when people tell me all of this stuff has been investigated. By who? Anybody with subpoena power is working in the same branch of government, same organization as the accused of the crime. So it doesn't add up. What else we got? Let me see. Anyway, so the election's jacked. They got Trump banned. And it's really fucking annoying to me. But what's worse is that people have taken every avenue to protect themselves. Every avenue. They've gone to the courts. They've gone to the law enforcement. I explained why they can't do it. They've protested. And now their voices are being silenced completely. If they pop up on TV, they're called insurrectionists, rioters. And I'm concerned because when you silence debate, all that's left is violence. You understand? Like, people can't talk. People can't seek any avenue of redress through the courts or through the law or anything. All they can do is commit violence to defend themselves. That's dangerous, right? When you read the Declaration of Independence, it was literally a list of grievances against the crown that they couldn't get redress for. They couldn't get even a hearing on, right? Taxation without representation, right? They didn't have a representative in the parliament. They couldn't be heard. That's when revolution starts. When people can't be heard. Whatever you think about, like, I see people cheering Trump getting banned today. Maybe you think it's funny. But forget that he's the president for a minute. And just remember that he's an American citizen. And in America, we believe that everybody has unalienable rights. They have freedom of speech. They have freedom of religion. Freedom of the press. Life, liberty, and property, right? They've threatened people's jobs for talking. They've fired some people for talking. They've, millions of dollars will be lost this week by different outlets who aren't allowed to talk right now. You know, a large portion of my views on YouTube comes through Parler because I post it and I go, hey guys, check this out. And people go, yeah, cool. I'll watch it, you know. I'll give you my take on it because I honestly am looking for feedback. I want to learn how to do this better. I just kind of shoot the shit with you, and I've never really gone live before yesterday, but I got the setup. I think now it's pretty scuffed setup, to be honest. It's pretty bad, but I do it because I honestly haven't decided whether or not it's time to fight. You know, a few months here, I'll be retiring from my previous job that I can't talk about yet because I can't do that. Now, I love my country. I love it deeply and desperately. But in so many ways, it is so much worse than it was 20 years ago. And it frightens me because I thought I spent my life fighting for the right thing. And instead, we lost our access to rights that, according to our government, can never be infringed upon, right? Our country was founded on the belief that every human being is born, no matter what crown they're born under, whatever, where they're born in the world, every human being is born with rights that no human being can take away and no government has the right to take away. And I look back at that time, 1776, and I see this small group of people making the case to the world, to the colonies. You know, most people didn't probably want to go to war. They didn't think didn't think they could win against the crown. Among the strongest, if not the strongest military in the world at the time. So they made the case. They wrote the Declaration of Independence. It's pages long. It's one of the most masterful documents in the history of humankind. And they made the case that we have a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness as humans, and that no government can take that away. And because they were not able to seek redress for those grievances, the only option left was to dismantle their attachment and allegiance to that government and to create a new one. That was the decision back then. And they convinced the American colonies, a lot of people, far less than there are right now Trump supporters, but a lot of people, to go to war with the most powerful military on the planet. And then they won. I don't want to see our country turn to violence. But the steps that Google and Facebook and Apple and Twitter and Amazon have taken over the last year have silenced all debate, have silenced all avenue of redress. You know, I have people literally respond to things I say with, "You're reciting talking points." I have spent countless hours of my life doing my own research. If I hear something and it doesn't sound quite right, or it sounds interesting, if I feel like talking to you about it, I go and look it up. I make sure it's true. I don't just throw things at you. It's just who I am. I don't like being a liar, and I certainly don't like being led around by the fucking nose. And so I have these people like, "You're just throwing out talking points." No, I heard the talking points from both sides, and what you just said was literally a talking point. You love your orange messiah. Actually, no. I think Trump's pretty cool. I think he was an amazing president, a shockingly good president. I did not expect this much from him, and I don't know why I didn't. He's worked for a living. No other president in our lifetime has worked for a living. Of course he would do a better job. Even if he was a complete idiot, he would do a better job because he knows how to work. He knows how to treat a job like a job. You walk in the door, you don't stop till the job's done. This guy would sleep 2-3 hours a day for the last 4 years of his life. You can see how he became a billionaire, right? He didn't stop. And he expected everybody around him to work that hard, you know? So I don't know why I was so surprised that he was so effective, but he was. He was very effective. And, you know, then you got the situation where they just tore him the fuck down all the time. And he was a good dude, but he also was a dick. He dug his own grave more times than he didn't. He would say things, and sometimes it was really smart. Sometimes he would say things that were really intelligent, and other times because it would get them all fired up in the media and he could pass the tax relief. That's awesome, right? But he would also say sexist things, kind of jerky things, and it was kind of like a waste of time. And I think the most annoying thing about him was that he couldn't explain his point, why he was doing the things he was doing, why he wanted this tax relief, or why he thought ending Section 230 was bad, or why funding HBCUs was good, or any of the dozens and dozens of things that he did that were awesome. He never really could explain it well, why he was doing it. And maybe people had too short of an attention span. So he just knew that, and he just was like, well, I'll just tell them how awesome it is, and maybe they'll just believe that it's awesome. You know, he did an executive order on kidney disease. So back in the day, I forget which president, maybe Johnson, did an executive order saying the federal government will cover all costs of kidney disease. Which, okay, maybe that's a good idea. The problem is it stagnated all development of new treatments for kidney disease because they were making tons of money off of dialysis. They were making all the money. Nobody was trying to 3D print a kidney, you know. Now they are, because Trump did an executive order saying, like, hey, I want to provide funds towards innovation in the area of kidney disease. It was a high cost area for the government's healthcare, and he said, no, we gotta get this innovated. We gotta get this solved. Like, we can't just treat people forever. We should be trying to cure kidney disease. That got no news. None. It was one of the biggest moves in his entire administration, and it got no coverage. You know, just like the 5 peace deals that they completely ignored and all that stuff. But I wish he would have explained that stuff to the American people. Because whether or not he was smart enough to come up with these ideas, he had some amazingly intelligent people there coming up with these ideas for how to be innovative, how to save money. You know, somebody would come to him, obviously, with a good idea like the kidney disease executive order. And he's like, cool, let's go, press with it. And, like, he was such a good president. I just wish he was better at explaining it and not such, not so crass all the time. Not that I'm against cursing, obviously, but some people just can't handle that, you know? So, maybe now's a good time for me to begin my year in review with you guys. So I've got this folder I'm calling 2020 Review, and I kind of separated things out into different folders. So we got Antifa, censorship, China, COVID, the election, we got some Epstein stuff, Facebook. Those are probably just screenshots from my Facebook feed because I wanted to use it to remind me of what I posted about this year. Rather than going through each day of the year and Googling, oh, this day, what happened, what was the news, I figured I'd just use my own feed because that's the stuff that caught my eye. I got some general stuff here. I just like this because this is my favorite. This is all Democrats, right? Women. And these are Republican women. And I just think the comparison couldn't be starker, right? It's like, ugh. Ugh. Anyway, it makes me fucking laugh. So I love that one. But anyway, so that occurred to me earlier in the year. Let's go through some Antifa stuff. So I had talked about this yesterday, but now I have it set up with my display capture so we can kind of look at some of the stuff. So this guy, Andy Ngo, is a great journalist. He has been covering Antifa since like 2014, 2015. They hate him, so I love him. Follow him on YouTube. He's got articles in multiple internet newspapers. He's just great. And they've attacked him physically. He's awesome. He's been on, I think he was on Joe Rogan at some point. He's just really good. So, for some reason, Andy's really good at exposing that Antifa is full of sex offenders. This guy's a serial child sex offender, released from prison, served a titular leadership role at the BLM Antifa Autonomous Zone in North Portland. He's a registered sex offender who has victimized at least 6 minors. I don't know why Antifa is so into aligning themselves with sex offenders. This is a beautiful Christmas photo from Cloyd Dixon Rauch, a militant Antifa in Portland who promised to stab me, is actually a middle-class family man who is giving away Christmas postcards of him in black bloc with his partner Casey Rauch and their child. Both husband and wife have radical beliefs they conceal behind a wealthy lifestyle. Look at them. Don't they look lovely? This is the face of the left. This is the Democrats, right? So just like when you saw the pictures on the Capitol the other day, right? And they're going, look, you got this guy in horns, and this guy's a Trump supporter. And, you know, what's funny to me is, like, a lot of Trump supporters were like, that's not a Trump supporter. And I'm like, you don't know what every Trump supporter looks like, right? And this is what Democrats look like to us, right? And it's just, look, these are not poor people. You have money to buy Kevlar helmets, goggles, right? Like, goggles themselves are pretty fucking expensive. Like, 20, if those are ballistic, they're really expensive. But if they're just even regular ski goggles, still kind of expensive. But then you're dressing your kid up in that stuff, man. That's just creepy. Let's see what else we got. Oh, this is an influential militant Antifa activist who calls for violence. It's Seattle area children's camp counselor Mikhail Andrew Baker, 23. And it's Mikhail is a trans non-binary furry who last week published a hit list on social media. This does not look like any camp counselor I ever had, right? I have no idea what the hell's even going on in this picture. I don't know what the hand is. I don't know what's up with the unibrow. Like, the eyebrows don't match. The gloves, it's just, this is all too much for me. And then adding in that this is a camp counselor who is a trans non-binary furry. Yeah, I'm so glad that people align with that. This one I also showed you guys yesterday. Antifa in Portland and a Nazi rally. Now, one of the most common things people say to me all the time is, Trump is Hitler, and the right Trump supporters are Nazis. Slow your roll. Nazis was the National Socialist Party. You cannot be a Nazi and not be a socialist. Right? Now, you can be a socialist and not a Nazi, maybe, but you cannot be a Nazi and not a socialist. Those things do not go together. They always go together. Sorry. So, Trump cannot be Hitler because he's not a socialist. Okay? But they do look eerily similar. Let's see what's next. Come on, what are you doing? Help computer. I talked about that. Alright, well, we all remember when that kid shot people in Kenosha. I felt like, when I watched the video, oh yeah, here's Connor hitting it. He was killed this year for being white on his own street. And everybody just kind of ignores it. But I can't. I talked about that guy yesterday. Jerry Nadler. Let's see. Ted Wheeler. Yeah, Vanessa Guillén murdered. Nobody seemed to care. Kind of breaks my heart. Let's see. So this one I'm going to talk about again, even though I talked about it yesterday. So, they were blocking the highway in Seattle for days and days and days, and this Eritrean, I think he was an Uber driver or something like that. So Eritrea is a country. He was from Eritrea, so he was Eritrean, a black man. Charged with, I think it was murder or manslaughter. He hit somebody who was standing on a highway. An Antifa supporter, dressed probably in black, who was standing in a highway. He went down the highway, probably accidentally hit them. Don't know. Unlikely that he did it on purpose, as he would lose his access to citizenship by getting charged with a crime. And nobody wants to crash the car, by the way. So they were protesting for Black Lives Matter, and they ended up getting a black man arrested. Disturbing. These are all things that happened in 2020, if you wonder why I'm going over this stuff. Let's see. This guy wanted $500 million in damages for the disaster area that Minnesota became after the riots. We talked about those folks. Talked about that. If you remember, Rayshard Brooks was the guy. He fell asleep in a drive-thru, drunk. For a police officer, falling asleep in a drive-through drunk is very dangerous, right? So the person is unconscious. You don't know if they have a weapon. You don't know if their foot's on the brake. You don't know if the car's in gear. If you scare them, they wake up, and maybe they wake up scared and accidentally hit the gas. Maybe they've got a gun in their hand underneath their shirt or by their seat. You don't know. So for a cop, it's very dangerous because this person's behind the wheel of an engine, drunk, maybe, but asleep at the wheel nonetheless. If you disturb them in the wrong way, you can end up causing an accident, damage, or violence, right? So then they arrest him for DUI, and as they're arresting him, he fucking steals the officer's taser, points it at the police while he's running away, and shoots it. And misses the cop, thankfully. And he landed up, whatchamacallit? I think he landed up getting shot. Yeah, so landed up getting shot or whatever. And he caused it. He caused the whole situation by doing the one thing that we all know when we get a driver's license. They ask you about, do you know if, like, it's illegal to drink and drive? Like, and he started fighting with a police officer, gets killed, could have killed other people, and they rioted. They burned down the Wendy's. They destroyed the fucking city for all intents and purposes, and said it's okay. You know, we're defending him. A couple of days later, I think a small child gets shot because his mom accidentally pulled into the wrong parking lot where there was BLM people guarding it, and got shot. The whole shit's just a mess, man. Like, people can excuse anything. Let's see. Here's this National Guard member. Forget what city this was in. Getting attacked by this gentleman. Talking shit to him. Now, at the time, a lot of people said to me, like, oh, you know, having the National Guard, that's a mistake. It's fucked up. You know, it's a military occupation. Slow your roll. From the moment a person enters the United States military, they are yelled at, screamed at, and they're forced to stand there just like this gentleman. And they stand there, and you look straight forward, and you take it. And you take it, and you take it, and you take it. And you get crapped on, nonstop, all the way through basic training. And at any point in your day, for the rest of your time in the military, somebody can do that to you. They could stop you dead in your tracks and rip you to shreds, and you're not allowed to say anything or do anything back. It's like our entire lives prepare us for that exact moment that kid's going through right there. Right? So, having the National Guard in your neighborhood in these high-pressure situations is probably the best possible scenario for who you want to slow the violence and stop people from acting a fool. It's way better than a cop. Let's see. Is that the last one in that folder? Yeah, that's the last one in that folder. So we kind of looked at some of the censorship stuff. We have all this stuff in way to make sure that, you know, our elections are integritous. So he says Fox News daytime is not watchable in a class with MSNBC and CNN. Doesn't talk about the election at all. They add a tag. Joe Biden is the projected winner of the 2020 election. This is a quote from Jim Jordan. They told you the Steele dossier was real. If you don't know what the Steele dossier is, then you probably don't have a right to talk about politics in America anymore. Just shut your fucking mouth and stop opening it. The protests were peaceful. The Hunter Biden story was Russian disinformation. And now they tell you we shouldn't ask questions about the integrity of the 2020 election. Jim Jordan's awesome. I hope he sticks to his guns and stays on his path. Hopefully we can make him the House Majority Leader at some point. Or get him in the Senate. Because we need people with spines. Let's see. This is hilarious. Joe Biden is literally sniffing children and squeezing them and groping them. And Facebook goes, this is partly false information. Which part? The part where he was sniffing them or groping them? Or the part where I shared it. Whatever, man. Not in the tank for this guy at all, right? So if you recall, the single biggest mass shooting happened in the country happened around August 11th. And they didn't talk about it, and they didn't care about it, because it was black people shooting black people. But they were also talking about disarming the police and defunding the police. Didn't even make the news, man. So fucking crazy. I'm not going to talk about that one. If you remember, President Trump went and took a walk and held up a Bible, and it was fucking a photo op. It was really bad to do that. Oh, wait, that's President Clinton. I love that meme where it's like, you put kids in cages, and Obama's like, that was me. That's pretty much the same thing. Everybody says it's different. It's not fucking different. It's the same thing. A photo op is a photo op is a photo op. All right. You know what? China's a little bit heavy. Let's not get into that right now. Let's see. COVID stuff. Matt Gaetz said, if you want restaurants locked down, just lock yourself down and don't go to them. Let the rest of us live our lives and support the jobs of our fellow Americans. So I haven't talked much about COVID because it's a really sensitive topic in the country right now. And, you know, like, I got a fledgling operation here. I'm trying to get my viewership up. I'm kind of a boring guy anyway. I thought I'd be more drunk by now. It'd be more interesting for you guys. Oh, I didn't talk about my nose. I have a bandage on my nose because I had cancer on my nose. Not the kind of cancer I thought I would get. I had cancer on my nose. If I have the picture on here, I'll show you what one kind of looks like. It was a basal cell carcinoma, which is like a very, it's like, if you're going to have it, it's like the better version, because it's slower moving. And I'll talk about it at length at some point, but I finally went and got the surgery because the holidays and shit happened, and then I got the surgery done, and now I have a hole in my face. And as you can tell, the location being right here, it's about a centimeter wide circle. It's really hard to get a bandage to go perfectly over it. And what you have to do is you have to keep, like, Vaseline on it. And you have to keep it, like, moist all the time because you want it to heal right. So they don't want a strong scab to form there, because if your nose stretches at all, or if you accidentally do that in your sleep, you'll break the scab and fuck up the healing process. So they're like, just keep it, you know, Vaseline on it, triple antibiotic, whatever. But anyway, that's my nose, if you're wondering about that. Now, here's my thing about COVID. It kills people. It sucks. 85% of COVID deaths are people over the age of 65. If you're going to enforce unconstitutional shit, why don't you enforce, if a supermarket wants to be open, we'll agree to you being open, but only if you only allow people over the age of 65 in between the hours of, say, 7 and 10 in the morning, and the rest of the hours of the day are reserved for the rest of the population. You could do that at Walmart. You could do that at Target. You could do that gun stores, liquor stores, everywhere. You could do it everywhere. Restaurants. Require that if they want to be open, they have to provide at least 2 hours a day to people over the age of 65. And we're out the fucking door on this thing, man. Everybody goes back to work. You know, give them the early bird fucking specials, whatever, right? If you're under this age, you can't come in these hours. If you're over this age, you can only come in these hours. It's fair enough. They only make up that percentage of the population. And everybody go back to work. And this is my thing. It's because they went at COVID with a hammer instead of a scalpel. I know that they're not serious about it. Because if you've ever been in the military, after like 9/11, you go into what's called FPCON Delta, Force Protection Condition Delta. The whole world went like DEFCON Delta, like movies, right? The whole world, every military base in the world went into fucking lockdown. Like, I was sitting on a door in Moody Air Force Base, Georgia, and I had to check IDs of people I'd seen every day for the last, 2 years of my life. I had to sit at the door and I had to check their ID and look at their face and check their ID and look at their face. And then every hour I'd have to go outside and have to look under every car to make sure there was no bombs and that they were all parked more than 25 feet away from the building. And I had to do this for weeks. The reason why I bring that up is that when you have a difficult when you have a high stringent standard for compliance, to ensure safety, people can only keep it up for so long, right? After a while, people become complacent, right? So you watch like Star Wars, right? And you see and you go, how is it that, you know, they could just sneak up on these stormtroopers? Well, let's start with they're on a spaceship in the middle of space guarding a door. How did anybody get on the ship, right? So that person's guarding a door for years on end on a fucking spaceship, standing at those two doors, hanging out with his buddy. Of course he gets complacent. It's the same thing with COVID. Hey, you have to wear a mask everywhere you go. Hey, you have to do this. Hey, you're not allowed to leave your house. Da 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 da. You know, people get complacent. I'm sure if you got put on telework during this whole thing, you logged in every day, you worked all day every day. At first, after a while, you realize, well, nobody's fucking paying attention. You know, the boss isn't even online right now. Da da da. And you started to fuck off a little bit, didn't you? Right? At first, you were stressed that people would think you weren't doing enough work. And after a while, you figured out, wow, I could, like me, I figured out I could do all my work in the middle of the night when nobody was online. And then just check in the morning. The computer ran faster. I was able to get things done quicker. And then I fucking, you know, I'll just be available during the day. So I say all that to say, like, the lockdowns aren't a long-term answer to anything. And if there was any potential in the beginning, which we knew, there was always going to be a potential that the lockdowns would have to go on for an extended period of time for them to be successful. Which is where we're at now. You have to make it sustainable. You have to make it where people don't get complacent. It just becomes the new rules of life. This is too restrictive for it to be successful. Too many people are out of work. Too many people aren't making any money. So that's kind of my take on COVID. Oh, here's a screenshot of the the latest stimulus package that Facebook fact checked and said that it didn't include any funds for all these countries. Well, here's the Economic Support Fund for $33 million for Venezuela. Here's a list of places that were in the bill that money went to that weren't Americans. Burma, Cambodia, Pakistan. But you got $600, so I'm sure you're good now. Let's see. Oh, so I did what's called seroprevalence investigation. I was looking into whether or not the CDC had done antibody testing. So seroprevalence is figuring out how many people in the population have antibodies for it against how many people they know have had cases of it, right? So, for example, they did this test in Connecticut, and this one was done, let me see if I can zoom in, July 27th. They had 48,983 cases reported at that time. And they said at least 5 times higher than that for this little area, for that small sample, had COVID already, right? So 3 times higher. If you look here, you'll see it down the bottom. Each of these locations was like 3 times higher, 7 times higher, 4 times higher. And this is what really kind of got my goat about it, but I'll go back to that one. 16 times higher. So what really bothers me is that a lot of that testing stopped. It stopped August, July timeframe. They stopped doing these samples. They were doing them every couple of weeks or every month or whatever to figure out how much the disease had spread in the population beyond what we had already known in terms of confirmed cases. And by all accounts, by every one of their tests, it's between 3 and 10 times higher. So if you look at the number of cases in the United States, say it's, I don't know, what have they said it is now? 30 million or something? I don't know. Say it's 10 million. If you look at 10 million people and it's 10 times higher than that, right? Well, that's pretty easy math, right? 10 million people, add a zero, 100 million people, right? Have already had the disease. If it's 3 times higher over 10 million, it's 30 million people, right? So we are in such a rush to get this vaccine out there. And something between, I would say, half the country, almost half the country has already had COVID, according to their own testing and seroprevalence testing. I think it's like 130 million when I did the math on it. And I could go back and redo that again sometime if you guys are actually interested. Let me see if anybody's in chat. Oh, hey, Brankley. I don't think you're still watching, but sorry, I didn't catch your chat message there. The evil man has been doing all kinds of stuff, covering up stuff and framing Trump. I don't know if I'm pretty sure that that's going to be, what do you call it, sarcasm? I don't know, man. Whatever. Let's see. Let's go back to what we were doing. So, something like 10 times. It's a lot of fucking people. And they stopped the testing back in July, so we don't really know. Because whatever reason, they just stopped doing it. Let's see. Spending on the COVID packages. So this is overall how much money was spent on corona stimulus, right? So you got, let's see, 1, 2, 3. That's 7 billion, 17 billion. Another 2.09 trillion, 483 billion, and then another 10 billion through President Trump's executive actions. On top of that, the Fed said they were going to release $6 trillion in funds. So on top of all this, there's $6 trillion in funds. And this is all stuff that happened before they did the latest relief fund. So we spent about $10 trillion on COVID before the most recent stimulus, which was like another trillion, I think they had it at. And what did we get for it? We had a virus nobody trusts. A lot of people don't want. Let's see. Oh, here's that fact check. New stimulus bill does not include funding for the Smithsonian. Yeah, it does. There it is, right there. Oh, there's the Smithsonian. Right in it. You guys can do this yourselves. It's on your phones. Just Google it. But, yeah. I had fun. I went through and I searched for everywhere in it that 000,000 popped up. Because pretty much anywhere you find that in a law, that's $1 million, right? Let's see what else we got. So, back in September 3rd, the CDC said that the COVID vaccine should be ready for distribution by November 1st. ABC News called it an election stunt. I guess they want us to wait to die. I don't know. Trump called him Joe Biden also on that day, which I thought was hilarious. This is the median age of COVID death is 78. Life expectancy in the United States is 78. So basically, you were going to die anyway. It's just a funny meme. Black Democrat dies during a pandemic. The Democrats go, let's have a huge indoor funeral. Black Republican dies during a pandemic. He deserved it for going to a huge indoor event. So silly. So, this one, I wrote this a while ago. So, Harvard says we should do 3 to 5 million tests a day. And then CNN goes, why doesn't Trump trust the experts? And then Yale epidemiologist with one of the highest ratings for a researcher I've ever seen says hydroxychloroquine works. And they go, that guy's a quack. And they had like 14 articles from less reputable people up that day saying, no, it's crap. And then 2,000 doctors popped up and go, no, seriously, it's pretty good. They go, they're Trump supporters. Well, who cares? Who cares if a doctor is a Trump supporter if they're right? Right? Oh, yeah. How did we get half of CDC coronavirus test kits are inaccurate? So, that was... What date was that? Sorry. So, that was July 20th. So, all the numbers before July 20th were bullshit. And I would say probably for the next couple of weeks afterwards were bullshit, too. Let's just point that out. This is LA County during the riots. I don't know what's going on with this. Oh, this is cute. The updated stay-at-home order. Social gatherings of up to 12 people and protests up to 100. Fucking people, man. I don't know. Is this boring to you guys? I don't know if anybody's even listening. Let me check to see if anybody's watching. Yeah, somebody's watching. Hey, whoever's watching, appreciate it. Let's see what else we got. If you find this boring, I can talk about something else. Just let me know. I'll check the chat back in a minute. Oh, yeah, that's why that's the last picture in that folder. Let's see. Let's look at Joe Biden rally. This was like right before the election in Georgia. And then, yeah, they're so fucking. He's so popular. 80 million votes. Here's a list of countries that require voter ID, and then, us. Let's see. Here's Joe Biden telling people he doesn't need their votes. He said it. I don't work for you. He also said, I don't need your vote. Let's see. So people say that the Supreme Court turned away, said, no, you don't, this is a bullshit case. Is like they kind of try to make it sound like it was a frivolous case when Texas brought it against Pennsylvania. But when you read it, it's actually pretty simple. Texas has not demonstrated judicially cognizable interest in the manner in which another state conducts its elections. All other pending motions are dismissed as moot. And then Justice Alito says, and Justice Thomas joined, in my view, we do not have discretion to deny the filing of a bill of complaint in a case that falls within our original jurisdiction. I would therefore grant the motion to file a bill of complaint, but would not grant other relief, and I express no view on any other issue. What that means is that they don't have a problem with the complaint, they just have a problem with who it came from. It shouldn't have came from Texas. If the state legislature of Pennsylvania sued the state of Pennsylvania for violating their authority under the Constitution, the Supreme Court would have to take it up. They would have to, because they obviously have an interest. It's their right under the Constitution to manage the election law, and the governor and the Supreme Court of the state took that right away from them. So this was not, the case was fraudulent, or we reviewed the evidence and it's bullshit. This is, well, Texas doesn't really get to say how Pennsylvania decides to apply their electoral votes. That's all they're really saying. It's like Texas doesn't have an interest in that because you only have your votes. You can't worry about other people's votes. You just have to make sure that your votes go the way you want them because that's your amount of say. Does that make sense? If it doesn't make sense, let me know. Let's see. This is from the audit, the Dominion audit of the machines that they did in Michigan. So on 3 separate occasions, they counted the vote, the same votes, November 3rd, November 5th, and November 21st. So each time when you go down this first column here, you're going to see that they had the same number of votes cast. And each time they were counted, right, they actually landed up, the same number of registered voters. Each time they counted the vote, there was a different number of votes cast. Ooh, I just hit my tripod. And then each time they were counted, they came up with different numbers. Right? If you look, Biden gets 7769. Then the next time he gets 7289. And then he gets 5960. And then Trump gets 4509, 9753, 83, and 9748. So each time they count them, the same machines, counted the same ballots, came up with 3 different numbers. Even on the third party, and in the number of write-ins. How does the number of write-in choices change? Like, you can see how the number of each write-in's votes would change, but not the number of write-ins, right? It says whole separate box. And then total votes for president swung 5,000 from 12,423 to 17,327. This is one county, Antrim County in Michigan. Had this happen, this is their official shit, like from their machines. These were the votes. So it wasn't the auditors doing these vote counting. This is the record of that vote counting pulled from the machines. To make that clear. Let's see what else we got. I'm not going to go over the whole Antrim thing again. I do have plenty of it. But this is another instance of Biden telling people not to vote for him. Because he didn't need your votes. Just didn't need them. Here's if you don't follow Project Veritas, I highly suggest you provide them support. Now listen, I'm not the biggest fan of, forget the guy's name, James O'Keefe. Not for any reason, it's just I'm not like this guy's, I don't think he's a bad person. I don't think he's like the greatest person ever. I think he's doing something important. And that's the only reason I say just follow him, because he doesn't always get everybody dead to rights, but you definitely get a view inside of how the world works of politics and policy and things like that. So, I say give him support. Let's see where they go. Here's a cute one. Sorry. Here's a cute one. This one is a fucking Craigslist post from the Democratic Party. Actors needed in the Phoenix Convention Center. Duties include protest activity and holding signs that are anti-Trump. Minorities welcome and needed. Looking to fill 500 spots. So they had to hire people to hate Trump. They couldn't just find people who hated Trump enough. They actually had to pay them $15 an hour to come hate Trump. So ridiculous. So here's one of my big things. So earlier in this podcast, I talked to you guys about how basically fucking Facebook, Twitter, they've banned everything conservative, which is fine. But I think we definitely need to file a lawsuit against the federal government for not enforcing federal election law for in-kind contributions to the Democratic National Party, right, to the DNC. So they've silenced Republican campaigns and candidates. They won't let them advertise. They have refused to take Trump campaign ads for the election cycle. They would take Biden ones. I'm sure you saw plenty of them. Shadow bans, algorithmic adjustments to hide the scandals that would negatively impact Democratic candidates, like the Hunter Biden scandal. They knew about that since last December. That was not a secret. Everybody knew about it. All the conservatives knew about the Hunter Biden thing, and they acted all fucking surprised when it came up again right before the election. Absurd. So, what is an in-kind contribution? An in-kind contribution is essentially a gift you give to a political candidate that is not cash, but it does cost you something. They are literally working to get Democrats elected and not to get Republicans elected. That's an in-kind contribution. Therefore, it's illegal. Therefore, they're using their resources to get him elected without donating to the campaign, without stating as such anyway. So, yeah, they should be fucking sued. Or at least investigated by the DOJ, who we can probably no longer trust. Let's see. Yeah, you guys remember when Joe said, you ain't black if you don't vote for me? Imagine a white man, a white Republican saying, you're not black if you don't vote for me. Wow. 28 million mail-in ballots went missing in the last 4 elections. This was from Real Clear Politics. Not exactly a right-wing media source. They just don't seem to have a dog in the fight. They just post what's out there. See, Epstein stuff. Oh, so you guys remember how crazy this year was? It is so crazy that John Roberts, the reporter, had to say, hey, the John Roberts on this flight log isn't me. Right? I didn't go to Epstein Island. This is some other John Roberts. And I've seen people on Parler talking about how that's probably just the Supreme Court Justice John Roberts. I don't know. I don't think that's probably... You can't get it from that. You can't get it from any of it. Now, there's a couple of problems. Is John Roberts is a really common name. Also, if this was after, and I don't see a date on it, but if it was after he became a Supreme Court Justice, Supreme Court Justices have Secret Service details on them as well. So this would have been like John Roberts plus 2 Secret Service, or 2 plus 2, or whatever, if it was him. Here's Harvey Weinstein hanging out with some of our favorite people. We got Barack Obama and Chuck Schumer. I'm not sure who that guy is, but this is the Saints Club. This is all the good guys. What else do we got? 2020 was a fucking nutty year, man. Do you remember when the judge's son in the Epstein case got shot through the heart by an assassin dressed as a FedEx driver, and then everybody ignored it in the media again? A judge was murdered. That's Batman villain shit. Okay? That is shit that happens in Batman movies. Nobody cared. So here's something I kind of thought was interesting. They had this big hoopla about how A.G. Barr fired this federal prosecutor in the Southern District of New York. They said he's firing people who are investigating Trump. Turned out he fired somebody who refused to investigate and arrest Ghislaine Maxwell. And within a few days after his removal, she was under arrest. The pedophile was under arrest. Now, her father was a member of British Parliament, famously caught living a lavish lifestyle and stealing from working folks' pension funds. He also ran a very well-connected publishing empire. Think multimedia, right? The foundation still exists today. So, where was the media demanding the abuser's head? Where did that go? Why didn't anybody care? They were so busy worried about was this prosecutor investigating the president that they missed that this prosecutor probably could have taken down Ghislaine Maxwell and probably was standing in the way of it. And I don't know if you noticed, but like thousands of missing kids have been found since, which I don't think is a coincidence. Let's see if chat said anything. No. Hey, I see one person's watching. If you want to ask me a question or talk about what I'm talking about, just let me know, and I'll be happy to do it. Let's see. So this is my Facebook folder from 2020. So basically, I just went in and screenshotted a bunch of stuff from 2020. Here are the donors to Biden. Miscellaneous finance and securities investment. 73,899,000 and 72,590,000. So in some of my videos on YouTube, I talked about how basically China owns BlackRock, Vanguard. They've got investments in almost every fund in the world, right? In the country. So they own a significant percentage of all of these mutual funds, investment security funds, and things like that. And for some reason, all of those funds that they own a huge stake in decided to donate a metric fuck ton of cash to Joe Biden. So Joe Biden, by 1 degree of separation, is owned by China. This was something I thought was interesting. So this is from Real Clear Politics. They get the same feed that every news network in the country gets on election night. They get the same feed. So it goes to the Seidel servers and it gets fed out through the Edison Research Group, I think it is, and then it goes out to all the media. Simultaneously, when it's going to Edison, it also goes to the Secretary of State of that state. So this is 4 days after the election, and I don't know if you remember, but 4 days after the election, Georgia was still counting. And for those 4 days, Georgia was still Trump at 100%. Nobody caught this, except me, because I always use Real Clear Politics, because they don't, like I said, they don't have a dog in the fight. 50.3% to 48.5%, 100% of precincts reporting. Somehow it switched to Trump, to Biden, even though 100% of the precincts were reported for 4 days straight after the election. Similarly, North Carolina took forever to call for Trump, 100% reporting. This is 4 days after the election. And this happened. It wasn't not a thing. They get the same data stream as everybody else. It updates in real time as everybody else. And you can look at county by county who voted and how many people voted and how much of that precinct is reporting. It was 100%, man. And nobody fucking... But for whatever reason, every other media outlet had wrong numbers, and they were all different wrong numbers. They were all... Sorry, not wrong numbers. They had different numbers. And they all had different numbers from each other. And that's what happens when you're fudging things. When you're all telling the truth, everybody would have the same thing because you're getting it straight from the server. So it would just feed to all of you, blah. You'd have the result. When you're not telling the truth, you'll end up with mismatches, even though you get the same source comes in and everybody goes, oh, we can't say that. And so just put something in there. That's how that happens. This is a great meme. Even the little boy gets it. You see the look on this kid's face? What is happening? That 80 million people voted for this. 80 million said, I want that. I want all that in my life. Let me just get up close. That. Here's a letter. Swear to God. This was from a Freedom of Information Act request. From Laura Graham to Cheryl D. Mills and Jean-Louis Bornholtz. Haiti elections. I told Bob that BC, being Bill Clinton, cannot engage on this issue. Hiring a contractor to help with elections, and that I would refer the email to you. I also suggest that Bob James Lee talk to you about anything to do with the elections because Bill Clinton cannot engage. He's not allowed to talk about it. This was from 2010. Now, Laura, just a heads up that James Lee Witt has spoken to President Clinton about a company we are working with that does successful elections in underdeveloped and developing countries. The name is Smartmatic. They just completed a successful election in the Philippines. I'll send you an article about this. They also have extensive experience in many places. I'll send you their record. They are one of the top 3 most successful companies in the world in this kind of work. What kind of work? I will send you some info on them. James Lee will ask if the president has time to meet with them and hear their thoughts on the Haiti elections. So, I don't know if you guys remember the Chinese Communist Party leak. I did a video series on it, and I never really finished it because I haven't been happy with the output of my videos. Part of that problem is that I didn't have a setup and where I could show you what I was looking at on my screen, so I ended up having to explain it all verbally. I didn't like that, so this is kind of like a lot better. So these are some of the companies that were listed on the Chinese Communist Party member list that were leaked. It's like 1.95 million members of the Communist Party was leaked. And these are some of the companies. So you'll notice Citibank, HSBC, that's another bank. ANZ, I think that's a bank as well. And then they go, oh, Pfizer, obviously the vaccine producer. But when I did my own research and I got a copy of the database myself, and then I got a translated copy of it, I verified that the translated copy was the same list as the untranslated. I found 5 of the 10 largest pharmaceutical companies in the world have Chinese Communist Party members working for them. Also 3M, Johnson & Johnson, multiple defense contractors that are not listed here. Now, for some reason, I forget the name of the organization, ITAC or something like that. It was basically a watchdog group of legislators against China, trying to keep an eye on them. And Marco Rubio was one of the members of it. And this organization leaked it to two media outlets outside of America that were English speaking. I think another one was Dutch, and I think the other one might have been Swiss or something like that. And they leaked it to it 3 months before the election, before December. So before the election, they leaked this list to them, not the world. They leaked it to them, and then when Australia reported on it, they reported on Australian companies, Australian brands, things people there would be interested in. When I looked through the list, I found all those other companies I talked about. They also discussed Boeing is on there. I wasn't able to find like Lockheed Martin. I looked for Dominion, obviously. I didn't see Dominion on there. But that might not be an easily translatable word in Chinese. It was just kind of weird that way. Like when you use Google Translate for company names, like it's not so easy. But 5 of the 10 largest pharmaceutical companies in the world, a lot of banks, a lot of different avenues that they were basically buying their way into companies and infiltrating them from the inside. This is Eric Coomer's Facebook captures from his Facebook page. So if you don't know who Eric Coomer is, he's been like the lead sales guy for Dominion voting systems, and he hates who he calls the Cheeto in chief. This is the guy. This is from his Facebook page. I don't know why this guy is in charge of any elections anywhere when he's got a dog in the fight. So stupid. Is that the last one in there? Can't be, no. Let's see. Another one from his page. In case you didn't know, Antifa has made a statement. So he's a huge Antifa supporter. Publicly from Antifa in response to the threats issued by President Donald J. Trump. And then he posts about it. If you're planning to vote for that autocratic, narcissistic, fascist, asshat, blowhard, yeah, this is the guy that's in charge of our elections, who also says, fuck the USA, shares this, apparently, music video, fuck the USA, in charge of the American elections. Stop pretending this is normal. Here's Biden saying Trump is afraid of me. Here's the modern state of American politics. These are the good guys. Remember, this is the good guy. The good guys, according to CNN, MSNBC, the entire media. This is the good guy. Don't you fucking forget it, and don't you dare say otherwise. These are the bad guys. You want to see why? This pigment right here. This pigment tells you that this bad guy. Also, their age is also a dead giveaway that they're the bad guy. Here is Hillary telling him not to concede under any circumstances if Donald Trump wins on election night. But remind me again how Republicans are the ones who are a threat to peaceful transition of power. New York released 2,500 prisoners due to COVID. They say racism caused a uptick in crime and a crime spree. Ridiculous. So we were told he mishandled COVID. On January 31st, POTUS closed all travel from China. Democrats called him a racist. February 2nd, now NYC Health Commissioner says join the parades and don't believe the misinformation from POTUS. Also, I think it was February 2nd or February 3rd, was the State of the Union this year. And he said, we're going to attack the scourge or something like that. That is COVID-19, the Chinese virus, blah, blah, blah. Right? Like, he was talking about COVID before they fucking were. New York City Health Council member Mark Levine says huge crowd is powerful defiance against scare tactics of POTUS. February 24th, Nancy Pelosi in LA Chinatown tells people to come down and join the crowds. I don't think it was LA, I think it was San Francisco. March 2nd, New York Mayor de Blasio urges New Yorkers to get out on the town despite coronavirus. April 3rd, Schiff and Pelosi announced an investigation into POTUS handling of the coronavirus. Now, some of that's true. I think most of that's true. I didn't check the dates. I do know that Trump was one of the first people on the coronavirus train, and he made sure to include it into his State of the Union, or at least his people did, which was a smart move because you'll have forever evidence. Let's see. Over 10,000 mail-in ballots were rejected in Michigan's primary on election in August 4th. About 8,600 were due to signature verification issues or late arrival. Turns out 847 of them were dead. But here's the other thing. Rejection rates were historically low in the November election. We already looked at that one. Here's an example of two ballots. I forget what state this is, but you'll notice there's a D here and there's an R there. On the outside of the envelope, it tells you whether or not that person's a Democrat or Republican. It tells the postman which one to throw away. That can't be right, right? Nobody can think that that's right. This is Sean King. This guy's, I don't know much about him. Every time I see him talk, it's like he's talking out of both sides of the mouth. I'll be frank and I'll tell you, two Democrats I'm 99% sure I won't be supporting, primarily because of their dismal history on criminal justice reform over the course of their careers. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. They both helped build and advance mass incarceration. That's it for me. I'm incredibly proud to see a brilliant black woman and an HBCU grad chosen as vice presidential nominee. I've done political work my whole life. It's rarely things dreams are made of. Kamala Harris is the most progressive VP nominee in American history. Same guy. These people. So this was, I think she was the police commissioner in Seattle or Portland. I can't remember. Awesome lady, hardcore, defund the police, blah, blah, blah. Black woman gets fired from her job because of Black Lives Matter. Harris, I believe the Biden accusers. Biden picks Harris for BP. So she wants to work with a sexual assaulter. Cool. Sorry, that one gets me. Are you going to the fuck capitalism protest today? It's like, I say that all the time. You don't get to, bitch about capitalism from the Starbucks on your Apple phone. You idiot. So I downloaded this picture because I wanted you to look at the outfits they're wearing, right? Look at what the Nazis wear, and then think about what Antifa wears, right? The only difference is there's not a whole lot of masks here. But they're the same thing to me. I'm not going to get into her. Anybody watching? No, I'm all by myself. All right, guys, I think that's probably enough for today. It's been a pretty fucking long stream. I've enjoyed it. Like hanging out with you guys. Hopefully I'll get more viewers in the future, but let's see. Yeah, we are at... Sorry, I got a projector on the wall. An hour and 34 minutes. So I think I'm going to call it there. Thanks for your time. Wasn't the most fun thing I've ever done, but I hope to improve these. I kind of want them to be more fun, more engaging, because it's just hard to, because I don't really drink as much as I used to. If I was fucking drunk right now, holy shit. But thanks for your time. Thanks for hanging out. If there's anything you guys want me to talk about, hit me in the comments. I'll be happy to, get in with it. Maybe we could do call-ins. Maybe if somebody wanted to call in, we can fucking argue. That'd be fun. I can argue. Or we could just talk about what the hell's going on. I don't know. It's COVID life, man. I miss talking to people. So this is me bullshitting. I'll talk to you guys later. Have a great night. And we hit stop streaming.